we're talking about raising Coturnix quail. So even if you've had other birds before, Coturnix quail are a little bit different. So there are a few things you need to know, and one is that they have a lower hatch rate than other birds. So they typically have a hatch rate of 50 to 80%. And they are harder to hatch than other eggs. One reason is because you cannot candle the eggs. You can't see inside to see if there's a viable chick. So it's kind of a guessing game until hatch day. So you want to give them the best chance possible by using the most viable eggs, the cleanest eggs possible. You don't want anything on the egg that might cause a problem with bacteria in your incubator, because if you have one bad egg, it can ruin the whole clutch. So you give it every chance possible by making sure you have the cleanest eggs and the cleanest incubator possible. So this incubator is really good because it's easy to clean. The whole bottom part can be cleaned, and this top part here can lift up and be kind of brushed off and cleaned separately, but it can't be soaked and bleached like the other part. And it's also like sectioned off in plastic here, so it doesn't get as dirty. It also beeps if any of the settings have kind of dropped. So if the temperature drops, it will beep. It will beep if the humidity drops as well, and it makes it easy to raise and lower the humidity with these separate containers that you can add water to. So you can kind of raise the humidity just by putting in another water container here. So you don't have to open the incubator, because it's really important that once your eggs are in the incubator, you don't open this. So you want to, when you get your eggs, you want to make sure that they are tip point down in a container for the first 24 hours before you put it in your set up incubator. So you want your incubator to all be cleaned and set up to a temperature of 99.5 degrees to 100 degrees Fahrenheit with a humidity of like 40 to 50% to start with for the first 14 days while the turner is on. So you want to program this to have the turner on for 14 days, and then the eggs go into lockdown. And you really don't want to open the incubator when these eggs are in lockdown, because they get stuck in their eggs very easily. So I wouldn't recommend using an incubator like this, where you would have to open it up to put more water in or to take the turner out. And also this one doesn't let you know the humidity. And also it is very hard to clean, because you cannot clean the upper part here where the heating elements are. So bacteria can get stuck in there. So this incubator is not ideal. It is one of the cheapest that you can get at $65. And this one is over $100, but it is well worth it because it is so much easier to keep clean and to use. Because you want to make sure that you are keeping a steady environment for these birds, because they are so delicate and prone to failure with any changes in humidity and temperature. After 17 days in the incubator is usually when they start hatching. So they hatch usually from 17 to maybe 21 days. So you really don't want to open the incubator during that time. So even if you have some chicks that have hatched, let them stay in the incubator until the other chicks have hatched as well, because you don't want to open it, especially if there's a pipped egg. They'll get stuck in the eggs super easily, easier than other birds. So you just want to take that extra precaution to make sure the birds are good. And you don't want to take the birds out of the incubator until they are completely dry, because they are so delicate as chicks, especially for the first 24 hours. They're very prone to drowning as well. They are very prone to getting chilled easily with temperature changes. So you want to make sure that when you do take them out of the incubator, when they're all dry and fluffy, you move them straight into a brooder that is set up for them at 98 degrees Fahrenheit. And you want to make sure that they have water that has like pebbles in it, so they can't drown. You want to make sure that they can't get into the water and get wet, because they are very prone to drowning. And they're not the smartest birds, so you want to give them every chance of success as possible. And these birds, they eat game bird chick starter, so not the chick starter for chickens. You need to get game bird chick starter because it has a higher protein than the other chick starter. So they need the higher protein, and you will need to take the crumble, the game bird starter crumble, and blend it into kind of a powder for these birds, because they're so small and they can't eat the crumble. So they have to have that all set up and ready for them to eat when they're in the incubator, because they're usually hungry, when they've been in the incubator for a while and they're all dried up. So you want to make sure that they get eating as soon as they're out of here, and because they grow super fast. So These birds are full grown at about 7 weeks, and they will be laying at that time. So they grow really fast and are very productive birds very quickly. So they can go outside at 7 weeks and they will be laying year round. If you keep a light on quail, they will lay eggs regardless of the temperature. So it's really the light that matters. You need to have a light on them for 12 hours a day and they will continue to lay. In the winter, you do want to have a nice thick bedding for them. So use like the deep litter method in their coop during the winter, so they're not in contact with the ground or like metal bars or slats or anything like that. You want to make sure that they can get comfortable in bedding in the winter. But other than that, they tend to do fine in the winter and they will continue to lay, unlike most other birds, because chickens don't usually lay for a good part of the winter. But these birds will. And they lay more nutritious eggs than chicken eggs. So they have a higher yolk to white ratio. They also have enzymes in the eggs that are supposed to be good for allergies, and they have just other benefits and nutrition than over chicken eggs. And they're really easy to use too. So they're a good size to mix into like pastas and mac and cheese, things like that. They're really good to hard boil. They taste really good. You can just kind of pop them into your mouth. But you do need these egg cutter scissors to use these eggs to mix into anything else. And about 4 eggs equal 1 chicken egg. Some more nutrition in them than chicken eggs. They just might be a little bit harder to use because you cannot crack them open like a chicken egg. But they are more nutritious. I think they taste better, but you have to use them fresh. They only last like a week. After a week, they don't taste good and you won't want to eat them. So that's something to think about if you're thinking about getting quail, that you have to be using these eggs pretty quickly. But there's other advantages to having quail over the nutrition of the eggs that are superior to other eggs. So quail are much quieter than chickens and other birds. They only make like little chirping noises. All the females just make little chirping noises. The males will make a weird noise that I have on other videos that you can check out. It's a really interesting noise and you probably wouldn't know what it was unless you had Coturnix quail. So your neighbors probably would never know what that bird is unless they are familiar with Coturnix quail. Another thing is they're not usually restricted in any neighborhood. So if you can't have chickens, you might want to consider having quail because they are great production birds that don't require a lot of space and they're not typically restricted. Also, they are easier to take care of. You can keep them in smaller spaces. They don't require much space. They can have like 1 square foot per bird is usually okay, whereas chickens need like 4 or more square feet per bird. So you can have these in small containers. Some people will keep them in their basements. Some people will keep them on a 3-season porch. I keep mine in a shed. So they're just really easy to keep that way. You don't need to like clean up after them like you do with chickens. So you can have them just in a coop that has a tray that pulls out with all their waste that has dropped through, which is ideal for them. They're just so much easier to clean up that way. You can just kind of put the waste into the compost directly. No shoveling, which is ideal for me. You can compost their waste very easily. They do eat a lot and they do produce a lot of waste, and their waste has more ammonia in it. So that is something to consider if you get Coturnix quail, that their waste has more ammonia in it. So you do have to clean it up on a regular basis because it will build up very quickly. Yeah, these birds are actually very friendly. Some people say that they're not good pets, but I mean, they don't bite you or attack you. Even the males are usually pretty tame. One of the most common problems with quail is that they fight with each other. So you don't want to have too many males. You might have some aggressive males. They can inflict some serious injuries on each other and they're pretty graphic. So just keep that in mind, that you may have to separate some of your quail or process some of your quail if you're into that, because they do fight with each other if they're not getting along. So you may want to have like extra backup coops or some sort of setup for them so you can separate them. I tend to like mix mine up every once in a while just so they get different dynamics. There's no pecking order, so that kind of helps with keeping them. Also not keeping that many. You want to have like 1 male for every like 4 females. but sometimes you just get an aggressive male, or sometimes even an aggressive female that just needs to be separated or figure out how to make it work. But that is one of the most common problems with quail, is that they fight. Also, everything eats them, so you have to make sure they're in a very safe enclosure where nothing has access to them. If they feel too vulnerable, they can actually die from fright. They can get so stressed out that they die. So keep that in mind as well. Keep them somewhere safe where they feel safe, they're not exposed to anything. That's why it's good to keep them in a shed or somewhere enclosed so they can't see anything around them, any vulnerable predators or anything that might get to them. You will need to have at least one face of the cage open to get airflow. Airflow is very important to them because of the ammonia that is produced with their waste. But yeah, I have really enjoyed having these birds, and I've had them for many years. So if you have any questions about Coturnix quail, I'd be happy to answer anything and get you started in having these birds, because they are great production birds. They are great pets. My kids like them. I love them. I find them easier to take care of. I still find them interesting because they do have different personalities and they can fly too. So they have cute little faces too. Some of them, if you get like a backyard breed, you can get different color variations. So I've had some with like blue eyes, green eyes, hazel eyes, brown eyes. So they can be fun to even like hatch and see what you get, because they also have jumbo ones, so you can get different sizes. Yeah, but they're really fun birds that are also great production birds that produce very nutritious eggs. So if you are considering getting quail and you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to answer them and help you enjoy your birds.